Today we're making 2 DIYs that are gonna look good in any space, guaranteed. They wanted $1,000 for that ottoman. I think not.
Yes! This whole thing, construction screws, I'm telling you. Very easy.
This is very much a make or break moment for this project. I didn't say that. I'm not putting that energy out there today. Okay, I've got 2 DIY projects today that I am very excited about. The reason is that they both have big customizable potential, meaning that we can adapt them to any sort of style and space that you might be working in. First up, we're gonna tackle an upholstered ottoman. Okay, now I know that a nice big statement one that really says something in a room can get really expensive, but I don't think this should be too hard to DIY from scratch. I've seen ottomans look so good in so many different types of spaces all over my Pinterest. And I've seen them range from super puffy extra seating almost all the way to the firmness of a coffee table. I've seen them styled in boho type spaces, more industrial leaning spaces, and honestly everything else in between. And you can have so much fun choosing between different colors, fabrics, textures, and really tailor this project to fit you and your style. Which, by the way, if you don't know what your personal style is, check out our interior design course. I'll link it below. We have the perfect way for figuring this out. So we've got plans to make over this corner of the office, so I've measured out a good size for an ottoman to fit here on this rug.
I'm a very visual person.
So now that I know the dimensions, I'm gonna go to the hardware store and pick out all the lumber we'll need. So for the structure of this ottoman, we're basically building a very simple upside down box shape that we're gonna cover with foam and fabric. So from the hardware store, I picked up 3 1x12 by 8 foot long knotty pine boards, which means they're actually really about 11¼ inches wide. So by the time we add in some feet and some foam cushioning on top, the ottoman is going to be, I don't know this number. This whole ottoman is going to be about 16 inches tall, which I think is a pretty good height for this. I also just picked up one single 2x4 by 10. This stuff is so inexpensive, and we're just going to use this for a little extra support and when it comes to installing the legs, but that's for later. So first, let's get to building this box. Now, when it comes to the actual dimensions of the size of this ottoman, you can certainly follow along with the exact size I'm making it, or the best part is you can make it literally whatever size you want to fit in front of your couch, to fit in a corner of the room, wherever you'd like. You can customize this thing to be the size you want. I'll be putting the exact dimensions of the cuts I'm making on our blog linked below. It will all be there with step-by-step instructions on how I did this if you'd like to know the exact numbers of the cuts that I'm making here. Out of the boards, I cut down 8 different pieces. 4 of them here are going to be used to build the outside shape of the box, and the other 4 are going to be used to build the top of the box. We're going to worry about these in a second, and for now, I'm just going to worry about building the box shape. I'm calling this a box, but really it's a rectangle, so 2 longer pieces and 2 shorter pieces. To assemble this whole thing, I'm using very basic construction screws. This frame we're making is going to be entirely covered by fabric later, so it's okay if it doesn't look cute, it just needs to be sturdy right now. Speaking of this being sturdy, I'm using wood glue along with my construction screws, and before I put in my screws, I'm making sure to do a pilot hole because this is only 3/4 inch wood. I don't want it to split.
It's hot today.
I made a box.
I want coffee.
No. Thank you. I didn't measure that so badly.
I am confusion.
It actually doesn't affect this. I just thought it'd be nice for it to be as tall as the sides. I don't know what I did wrong. But it's fine. Oh, of course, one of them is correct.
And this is why they don't put me in charge of math, because sometimes I can't do numbers correctly. But the reason this doesn't matter is because these inside pieces are to act as corner braces, basically to make the corners of this whole thing sturdy. So as long as these pieces go most of the way, they're still going to do that job. And the second job that these pieces are serving is to be the blocks that I'm going to screw my furniture feet into later. So as long as you make sure these pieces are touching the ground when you screw them into the corners, that will ensure we have a level place to put our feet on later on. And already adding in these 4 corner pieces and screwing them in from all sides has made this thing so much sturdier. But I'm gonna do one final extra step for sturdiness, because this thing is gonna be sat on, it's gonna be stood on. We want it to be solid. With the rest of my remaining 2x4, I've cut a piece that's exactly as wide as the inside of my box, and I'm wedging it in the very center at the top and screwing it in from both ends.
This whole thing, construction screws, I'm telling you, it's very easy.
This will give us a sturdy brace piece across the top, for which we can now move on to our final step of building the box, which is to add the top pieces. This is going to give us a sturdy, solid brace piece for which we can lay the last step of the box building process onto, which is the top pieces. I cut them out at the beginning, I put them to the side, and now is the time for them. Here they are, all 4 pieces, and if I did my math correct this time, it should be just enough to make it all the way across my beautiful box. Yes. It's always a good day when the math. I know you know what I mean. Now I'm sure you know where this last step is going, but I'm going to tell you anyways. Wood glue and screw all the way around. Okay, the box is done, so now we're ready to add some feet. You can, of course, go for any size, shape, style that you want. I have these little wooden ones. They're adorable. They're called bun feet, which is also just the cutest name ever. I got these off Etsy, and I will link them down for you below. They just come in raw wood, so you can stain, paint, finish them however you choose. But for me to put these on, I need to flip my whole thing upside down so we can access the leg block supports that we put in earlier. It smells like the wood aisle. This is a really nice smell. Someone needs to make a candle, maybe it's us, that is the wood aisle in the hardware store scented candle. Would you buy that? I would. Okay, the base of the ottoman is done and it feels super secure and it's a really good size, and that was not that difficult to do and didn't require a ton of materials. So my next step is upholstering this, and for that I'm going to need fabric. So I'm gonna head out to the fabric store and look at a bunch of different options. There are so many different directions we could take this, so many different colors, fabrics, patterns even. So I think I'm gonna grab a bunch of samples and bring them back here so that the team and I can all discuss what we think would be best. So I'm gonna head out and we will talk tomorrow. This would have been so good for the theme of my balcony, Palm Springs. I don't know what I need to make. I need to make something. This is perfect. I'm instantly sidetracked on the mission. We are here for ottoman fabric. These would match the rug nicely, but is that too perfect? A little check moment. My first thought was like a mustard color. This is lighter than mustard, but the print on it's really pretty. This is cool. It's kind of like checkered from far away, but it's not. I got a bunch of sort of patterned. This is the coolest, most interesting stuff they had. Do we like any of it? Red feels too matchy. Yeah, it's got to go with the rug, and then knowing the green cabinets are behind it too. That green one also is somewhat reversible. I think I have it the wrong way, but I kind of like the backwards pattern on some of them. Like that's supposed to be polka dots, but it's striped the other way. Yeah, the blue is the wild card.
This is a beautiful. I thought I was though. This is my book.
I like that one too, yeah. Do you like some of these?
I mean, not the $5 brand that I've been using.
I really liked this one, but no one seems to like it.
I do like that, but I think this is too intense.
The blue?
I do think so. Like, because it's going to be a sizable ottoman, right?
Yeah, it's going to be big. All right, they all kind of work. Okay, we've narrowed down our choices for the ottoman, but I do want to give it a little more time before we finally commit to our choice of fabric. But in the meantime, I do want to get started on this second DIY project. So let's talk lighting, specifically soft ambient lighting. It's one of the best ways to make any space feel cozy and well designed. Lately, we've really been into paper lamp style lighting to give a space a nice cozy glow, and let me tell you something, I am convinced that a paper lantern works in any style room. They perfectly complement those more minimalist leaning spaces while also blending in so well with bright and colorful ones. They can go mid-century, more industrial, or even look how good this one looks in this more Parisian style room with all this crown molding. Now, while your typical paper globe style pendant is very affordable these days, what I actually haven't seen done is a wall sconce in this style. So the challenge for me today is to see if I can make one. So I took to examining the paper pendant light we have here in the office, as well as watching several videos on how traditional Japanese paper lanterns are made. I found these videos so fascinating, so if you'd like to learn along with me, I will link them below. So my plan here is to combine some of the traditional methods of paper shade making with some of my just own made-up creativity. So to start, we need to tackle building some sort of frame for which we can wrap this paper finish on top and then put a light in it. Since I'm trying to make a wall sconce version, I need to start by making a flat back piece that I can hang on a wall. So I have here a sheet of 1/2 inch MDF, and I'll be tracing out a sort of wavy shape that I want my light to be in the size that I want it to be. And here is where you can get pretty creative with the shape you want it to be, the size you want it to be, and how you want it to look. Making a perfect wave form is not as easy as you would think, so I'm just using some plates here to act as circles for which I can trace out a perfect wave shape.
Do you want to do something? No. I just want it to look less like nuts, kind of. Just want to see what the proper shapes could look like. So give me 3 on it. 30? Yeah. Like some of that on it. It's something, and I feel like it could look better. Quickly.
Once I have a shape that I'm happy with, I'm just cutting it out using a jigsaw. Now, because the light I'm trying to make is going to be a 3-dimensional object, it's going to stick out from the wall a little bit, the frame support that I build for it needs to be 3-dimensional. So using some more MDF, I'm cutting out a secondary wavy shape that follows the same curves as the first one. You can actually just trace it to make sure it looks the same. And this shape only needs to have a wave on one side, the other side will be flat, and I'm making this about 6 inches tall at its widest. And once that's cut out, you can see here how once I stand this on top of the first shape I made, we're starting to make a wavy shape that's looking a little 3-dimensional. And with that, I'm going to end today, and I will see you tomorrow for more DIYing. Good morning! Okay, I just left the fabric store because we finally made a decision on what the ottoman is going to look like. We landed on that olive green fabric with the dotted pattern on it that we were looking at the other day, and while I was at the fabric store, I also picked up some batting and some 1-inch upholstery foam. I went with 1-inch foam, but if you want a more squishier, seat-like experience for your ottoman, definitely feel free to up the thickness on this. Okay, let's head into the office and put this thing together. So first step is getting this foam topper stuck down, and the easiest way to do that is with some spray glue. Nice. Easy. Great. Well done. Thank you. Now, for wrapping the ottoman in both the batting and the final fabric, it's easiest in this case to do it upside down, since I need to be able to access the underside, put the staples in. And I don't have a lot of space to do that since it's basically sitting only a few inches off the ground if I were to do it right side up. And speaking of staples, I'm using an electric, battery operated. Now, speaking of staples, I'm going to use this battery operated staple gun because it's going to be a lot faster and quicker to do it. But you certainly could use a hand staple gun if you have access to that instead. The trick to getting fabric on in an even way: staple one side and then flip to its opposite side and pull tight. That's the better approach than working your way all the way around. It's going to help you get the most even pull everywhere. Now to deal with the corners. It was at this point that I realized the next steps would probably be much easier if the feet weren't in the way, so I just removed them temporarily. For the corner of the batting layer, I found it easiest to just pull the corner all the way straight out from the corner point and cut off most of the excess, leaving about an inch left. With that extra inch, you can fold and tuck both layers on top of each other and just staple them down. Staple down around the top too, and then just cut off any extra batting that's in the way. So applying the top fabric is the same process as applying the batting, but there are two important things to note to make sure that you get this nice and even and tight. First being tension, we want an even pull all the way around. I find working with a fabric that has a little bit of a pattern like this polka dot made it so easy because I was able to just pick a row of the polka dots and make sure that my staples were following that so it was tight evenly all the way around. Wow, look at that. It's beautiful. The second thing is staples. We want to use a ton of them, as many as you can, because the more staples, the less gaps there's going to be for uneven pulls on the fabric. Oh, and I guess secret third step is that I did find this helpful to have a second set of hands to just help me pull it tight as I stapled. Now to address these corners, similar to the batting layer, pull your fabric out from the corner and cut off the excess, leaving about an inch of extra material. Take one side and tuck it underneath the other side and staple it into place. Now for that top layer, fold the fabric over and tuck the raw edge of the fabric underneath. You can roll this fabric under as much as you need to so that the folded edge lines up nicely with the corner of the ottoman. Staple the extra fabric underneath to hold it all in place, and then you can go ahead and just cut off any of the excess fabric. If you're happy with the way your fabric is laying, you could totally stop here, but I'm going to take these corners one step further by stitching them together. I'm using this curved upholstery needle, which makes pushing it through the fabric a lot easier. I'm using this technique, which is called a blind stitch, and this is done by alternating long stitches between the top layer and the bottom layer of the fabric, going back and forth, and then pulling it tight to hold it all together. Tie it off with a knot when you're done, and then repeat this for all four corners. And now all that's left to do is just put the feet back on, and we can flip it over and see how she looks. We're making this for a space that we are making over shortly, actually coming out next week. So I'm purposely leaving the feet unfinished for now because I'm not sure if there's the theme we want to go with, depending on how the rest of the space is looking. You'll have to tune in next week to see if these are a different color. I don't know yet. Wait, we did so good. Look how even this is. Wow. Okay, let's get back into this light, which I'm very excited about. So I've ordered this, which is called Basket Round Reed. And it looks to be a similar product to what's in our traditional paper lanterns. So this is what I'm going to use to bend and create almost kind of like a cage that I'll lay the paper on top of. Now, we need this to be evenly spaced onto the base to make nice, beautiful little lines. So I'm going to take my ruler and mark out every 3/4 of an inch onto my back piece. And at those marks, I drew straight lines. With those lines at the 3/4 inch mark all the way across, I'm now able to see spots along the edge at every 3/4 of an inch. Next, taking a drill and a drill bit that's the same size as the basket reed, I'm drilling a hole at every one of those 3/4 inch marks as close to the edge of my shape as possible. This will make a little hole which we can put the basket reed in to hold our shape. On one side, I'm drilling just halfway through the shape. And on the other side, I'm making sure to drill all the way through so the drill bit comes out the bottom. And before I get too far, this is a good time to flip this whole thing over and add some hanging hardware so that we can hang it on the wall once it's done. Now, that might have seemed like a lot of tedious work, a lot of repeating the same steps, but it's important because this is going to set us up in a really good spot for the next steps to go super well and look super good. So we have all the holes. It's simply going to be a matter of placing the basket reed in all the holes. But if you'll remember this piece is going to help us get everything at an even tension because we're trying to make a wavy shape that's not very easy to freehand. So having some sort of guide to keep everything at a consistent wave is going to make this go super well. So starting at the side that doesn't have the holes going all the way through, I'm going to use pieces of the basket reed and dip it in a little bit of wood glue and put a piece in every one of the holes. Now it's time to put that middle piece in place, make sure it's nice and centered and straight. And then I'm simply going to be wrapping the reed over top of this shape. The end of each reed goes into the holes that we drilled all the way through and pulled tight so that it creates the same wavy shape that we're trying to accomplish here.
It's working!
Make sure as you go that your reeds are spaced the same 3/4 inch distance along the top of this middle support as well. I've gone all the way through the one side and it's looking something like this, which this is actually pretty exciting because it's starting to look like the real thing. Like it's looking like 1/2 of a large lantern. I do need to trim all these excess bits, but first I'm just going to take a little more wood glue and just kind of dab some along the edges here to help hold this in place long term. And then I'll take some little wire cutters and just snip off the extra bits of the reed. The frame is looking so legit that it's now time for us to move on to the next step, which is the papering process. This is very much a make or break moment for this project. The paper we're going to use to cover this is a paper called rice paper. It is really soft and diffuses light really well, which is, I think, why it's used for this. Even though it has rice in the name, it has something to do with rice. It's actually made from the bark fiber of a mulberry tree, which is very cool. I will link this one specifically for you below. Now, this process is pretty similar to your old school paper mache technique where it's just paper and glue, but the glue has a little something else to it. So the glue I'm using is just white school glue, but into it, I'm adding a product called methyl cellulose. And I know this sounds a little more intense than it really is. This is a natural product, which when mixed with water, makes its own sort of natural glue. And it's used a lot by bookbinders, which makes sense. We're working with paper too, and this is great for a paper project because it stays wet for a long time. The problem with traditional school glue is, yes, it holds well, but it dries really quickly. And we want to have good working time with this project. So in a bowl, I'm pouring out some of my white school glue and then adding into it this mixed up methyl cellulose glue, which will just give our white glue a lot more working time. Aren't you learning so much today? Isn't this really fun? Because let me tell you, I had a lot of fun doing the research for this project, and it's not that readily available. Okay.
Silence.
Let's get to it.
This is what methyl cellulose looks like when you let it mix with water. It turns into snot. Yum! Ew.
If you're like not a texture person, perhaps this product is not for you.
To glue this down, I'm using a chip brush to spread the glue all over the frame. I'm making sure to use a lot of glue because the paper is not going to stick to any dry spots. I laid a strip of the rice paper down onto the glue and then gently pushed it down to follow the curve of the frame. I'm not worried about any of the edges that don't easily stick down because I'm going to trim those off later. I'm then using some water in a spray bottle and misting the paper. This makes the paper more flexible and bend into that shape even better.
It's working.
I found that a secondary dry chip brush was extra helpful for gently pushing the paper into the frame. It's super important to be very gentle with this step because this paper can tear very easily. I'm then using a sharp blade to trim away any of the paper that didn't conform to the curves properly. I added on more rice paper strips and repeated this whole process until the frame was covered. Rice paper is on. It's completely covered. I will say my edges could have been a little better. I think a sharper knife certainly would have helped in this situation, but we'll deal with that in a second. But now what we need to do is remove this center support. This was not meant to be a permanent feature inside the light. It was simply meant to help us build that 3D shape. But now that it's all together and the paper's holding it in place, we don't need this anymore. In theory, I should be able to just knock it to the side and slide it out because it's not attached in any way. Wish me luck, please. Audio is still recording. I didn't stop just in case anything interesting happens here. And by interesting, I mean bad. And by bad, I mean I didn't say that. I'm not putting that energy out there today. No, I'm not. Oh my God, I don't even need this. Dare I say something is going well? Oh my God. The visions I had of this just like falling apart or like the paper totally tearing have been haunting me throughout this process, but no need. No need. Yes. You served me well and your time is done. Thank you. Oh my God. Look at this, guys. Look at this. We've done it.
Oh, hell yeah.
The lantern vibes are strong. Wow, okay. I'm gonna let this fully dry and harden up, and then we'll get to finishing it. And as a last minute solve on how to fix those uneven edges, I cut 1/2-inch strips out of that same rice paper and glued it on top. This made all of the difference, and it's looking so much better. Success! So, to light this, I'm going to use some simple peel and stick strip lights. They just plug in and I can change them to be any color, which is very cool. But the problem is, it's a giant peel and sticky, and I don't think I can get inside my light to stick it down nice and evenly. So, my plan is to stick the stickies to a piece of thin wood that I can then slide in to my light with a little bit of glue on the back. And that's going to allow me to get the lights in there even.
That'll work.
And that is it, friends. Those are my DIYs. I hope you try them out. Or if you've got an ottoman or paper light that you love already in your home, tell me about it. How do you style it? Where do you put it? What's your style? Now, I've styled both of these things not in their final resting spot. So if you want to see the spaces those are going into, it's a really exciting makeover. Actually, I might say it's a couple of makeovers in one video. Oh, that's some tea right there. Then make sure you're subscribed because that is coming out next week and I don't want you to miss it. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.